So back in 1998, there was a fascinating book written by Thomas J. Stanley and William D. Danko called The Millionaire Next Door. The subtitle summed up the theme of the book, The Surprising Secrets of America's Wealthy. The book was considered to be the most comprehensive research ever conducted on who the wealthy are in America. The affluent were defined by having a net worth of at least $1 million and not by how much income they earned. At the time the book was written, there had never before been such an abundance of personal wealth in America, over $22 trillion. However, that wealth was owned by only 3.5% of all the households. If you haven't read the book, you'd be surprised to learn that having a high income was not the best predictor of becoming wealthy. However, business ownership was. In fact, 2/3 of all that wealth was owned by the self-employed. It is clear that, outside of a financial windfall from an inheritance or hitting the lottery, the most secure path to wealth was through business ownership. Now, we should also note that money is not always the primary motivator for someone looking to start a part-time business from home. You might be familiar with Robert Kiyosaki. He is a multi-million-dollar investor and probably best known for being the author of the #1 personal finance book of all time, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In one of the other of his bestsellers, Business of the 21st Century, Kiyosaki points out that it's not just about making a living. It's about the quality of how we're living. People are waking up to the fact that they want more control over their lives. We want to be more connected to our families, be in charge of our own time, and determine our destinies. Kiyosaki cites a poll from the Fresno research firm Decipher, which found that 72% of all Americans would rather work for themselves, and 67% of people think about quitting their job constantly. The #1 reason they gave for wanting to work for themselves was to be more passionate about their work life. So, whether it's about building wealth or having a better quality of life through passionate work, becoming a business owner just makes sense. Now, earlier we mentioned that it may require shifting your mindset from an employee to a business owner if you're considering starting a part-time business from home. To break this down, I'm going to continue to reference Kiyosaki's work in the Business of the 21st Century by explaining his 4 cash flow quadrants. These quadrants define how one makes his or her money. And Kiyosaki says each is different from the other, and each defines and determines a very different lifestyle, regardless of the amount of cash you earn. So if you haven't seen this before, here it is. An employee earns money by holding a job and working for someone else or a company. The self-employed are people who earn money working for themselves as solopreneurs. A business owner owns a large business that generates money from employees or a team, and investors earn money from money generating more money. Now, which quadrant do you live in? Where do you receive the majority of your income from? Let's go a little deeper here for a second. The overwhelming majority of people learn, live, love, and lead this life entirely within the E quadrant. The educational system and our culture train us from a young age to live that way. You know this philosophy. Go to school, get good grades, and get a good job with benefits at a great company. However, the corporate myth is coming to an end. People are getting tired of climbing the corporate ladder only to find out that the view doesn't look so good. So let's keep moving here. What about the S quadrant? Besides, isn't that what we are talking about anyway here? All these millions of people joining the ranks of the self-employed is where most of us need to start, but Kiyosaki warns us not to fall into that trap. The only reason to get into the S quadrant is to provide a path to the B quadrant. Otherwise, all you are really doing is giving yourself another job. And when you screw up, you can't blame the boss. So with an S business, we work for the business, but with a B business, the business works for us. And that is how millions of people are prospering with a part-time online business from home. They use a system that sets them up for a B quadrant business that can generate income independently of the owner's full participation. Most people live in the quadrant tied to their core financial values. These values either attract us or repel us from the other quadrants. It's not as simple as filling out a change of address form at the post office. Kiyosaki says we must not only be prepared to change what we do, but we must also be prepared to change who we are and how we think. And by the way, living in one quadrant doesn't guarantee financial success. We still need a solid plan. More on that in a few minutes. Now let's move to the E quadrant, where the core value is security. You'll hear someone in that quadrant say or ask, I'm looking for a good job with benefits. Or how much do we get for overtime? Or how many paid holidays do we get? And then the S quadrant core value is independence. And you will hear them say things like, if you want something done right, do it yourself. Now these people often have great technical or management skills, but lack the ability to work well with or lead others. Then the B quadrant core value is wealth building. And people in this quadrant will say things like, I'm looking for the best people to join me. And they seek out to build a network with often people that are smarter, more experienced, and more capable than they are to leverage different opportunities. The I quadrant core value is financial freedom. And you will hear the I quadrant people often ask questions like, what is the return on my investment? And the investor loves the idea of his money working instead of him or her working. Now, perhaps the greatest strength you have by starting a part-time business from home on your own time is what Kiyosaki calls having a genuine asset for wealth building. You may already know this, but the typical $1 million plus lottery winner ends up broke within just 3 years after hitting it big. This is because having a sudden windfall of money doesn't mean that a person understands the concept of wealth. Now, hopefully by now, we have confirmed any suspicion you may have had about trading time for money as the path to wealth. That just won't work. But it is also important not to build a home-based business just to create more income to spend, because while you may be happy in the short term with this newfound source of revenue, you'll be disappointed in the end if you don't treat it more like a wealth-building asset. The B quadrant dweller understands that money and wealth are not the same thing. Wealth is not measured by the amount of income, it is measured in time, and to be precise, the number of days that you could survive without working. Have you ever asked yourself how long you can make it without working? The power is in your hands to never worry about your long-term financial future. Kiyosaki gives it to us in a 4-step plan. Number 1, build a business. And home-based businesses usually only require a small investment. Number 2, reinvest in your business. Of course, you'll have to put some money back into it to grow and scale, but also more time and effort as things grow. Number 3, invest in assets that earn you money, like real estate, equities, and other examples that can bring you a return back on your money. And then number 4, let those assets, the return on those assets, buy your luxuries. Now, you may have wanted to hear about building a part-time business from home to find a quick and easy path to becoming rich. Well, we don't believe in that here, but we do believe in Kiyosaki's approach. And he points out that the ultimate luxury that we should want to buy is our time. With the right mindset of the B quadrant, the next step is having the right plan. So let's move on and discuss how we can put the right plan together. Now, in the next video, you're about to learn one of the biggest secrets to being a successful online part-time business owner from home. So we look forward to seeing you there.